Hoping this one finally freaking works. Looks like maybe we've finally gotten the bugs out of the system with Restream. Not been a huge fan of their changes to their platform. It's the only way I'm aware of that we can stream multiple things, so it's what we work with. So, alrighty. Temur Prowess, obviously, the deck we're working with. Now, as I mentioned in last week's stream, we are going to kind of be hanging up Prowess, or at least kind of moving away from it here on the main channel, for a couple reasons. One, the deck hasn't been putting up barely any results in any way or fashion in Modern since the banning of Nadu and Grief, and the rise of mono Boros energy, basically, as like 25% of the meta. I don't even think that Boros Burn has been putting up much of a finish lately, with Bolt Wave being added to the party. So in a lot of ways, I mean, well, it has obviously impacted Modern and 16. Nope, no finishes. And filter again with the Rakdos variant. A 1-2 finish. And some type of event down at C-Bus, not even a 5-0 or a challenge finish. So, I mean, Burn and Prowess are both struggling badly despite some new tools. But as I kind of alluded to, you know, Prowess content will still continue. We'll still have it some on the channel. Maybe especially post if they there's a BNR announcement December 16th, which is kind of in the middle of a lot of things for me right now, between work and moving and a bunch of other things. Holidays with family, my in-laws and my parents. So lots of that stuff going on. So I don't know how much I'd be able to put out like new content at that point in time. But alas, we will try. If you know the One Ring gets banned or some other piece of energy gets banned, we will try to put out more content of, you know, more recent variety if there is a call for trying to run back the deck. But I think for after we do these 2 boot camps this week and hopefully next weekend with the Gruul combo version with scale up and whatnot, I think we'll be stepping away and kind of not going into a lull, but we will be hey Daniel, how are you doing? We will be stepping away from Prowess content a little bit, at least until 2025, barring a ban announcement on the 16th that impacts Modern significantly, because as it is, red aggro is just not well positioned. But I did want to, you know, kind of wrap a nice, neat little bow over what we've learned about these decks, you know, kind of the different reasons. Last week, obviously, we went over the Gruul energy build with Unstable Amulet, Amped Raptor, and Galvanic Discharge. This week, we're more looking at the lists that involved, you know, Preordain and Expressive Iteration. Well, I am going to mention the version that we ran a couple weeks ago with Elusive Otter and was more of a combo build with Elusive Otter. The main draw towards this one is the consistency. You know, much like, is it Murktide when it was more of a portion of the format, you know, Preordain and Expressive Iteration go a long way towards trying to stabilize the deck in terms of, you know, finding a missing piece, whether it's, you know, missing burn spell to finish the game off, finding another threat digging to an Underworld Breach in the late game. This version has a lot to like in terms of consistency over both of the Gruul variants and the Boros and Rakdos, Naya, whatever versions have been out there, just because the blue cantrips. And while we don't have it in this version, simply because I don't have the card in my collection right now, because it's been such a heavily played card in Modern and Legacy, Consigned to Memory, as a combination counter target ring and counter stifle, storm triggers and everything else, has really been, another reason why this version was played at all, really. Just being able to stifle triggers, counter the one ring for 1 blue mana, be good against Eldrazi, etc. So, the Izzet build / Temur build really is kind of a misnomer. It's basically Izzet. Some versions have splashed for Izzet or Questing Druid in the main deck. I had it in the sideboard of this build that we ran a couple months back. But, the core of the deck, you're still a DRC, Swift Spear, Soulscar Mage deck, along with Slickshot as your main threats. You can still threaten a fairly quick kill, especially on your Slickshot draws. Turn 4 easily, turn 3 sometimes, especially without running things like Manamorphose. Your only real free spells are Mishra's Baubles, and in some cases, Mutagenic Growth, depending on the build. And, obviously, you see a lot more cards with Preordain and Expressive Iteration. The downside to this one, what you gain in consistency, you lose a little bit in speed. This version isn't as fast as the combo Gruul versions with Scale Up and Assault Strobe, and it doesn't quite have the reach that the energy decks do in terms of the backup plan with Unstable Amulet being able to burn your opponent out from a little bit. I have not. I've seen a few people seen a few people talk about Mockingjay, and the good side of Mockingjay is when your draws are going well, it gives you, one more copy of Dragon's Rest Channeler, gives you one more copy of Swiss Spear, gives you one more copy of Slickshot Show Off. The downside is, on its own, without a creature to copy, it's a lot worse. It's basically a, 2 mana, or Mockingbird, sorry, not Mockingjay, too much Hunger Games on the brain. But the biggest problem with it is just if you don't have something to copy, it's not that good. Because you're basically paying at least 1 mana for a 1/1 flyer, and really you need something on the battlefield to copy it to get really much out of it. So maybe let's see what the cost of those are right now on MTGO. Mockingbird. Maybe we could actually do a little bit of a run with it if it's not too... No. It's $2, so... It does see some play in, like, Dimir Aggro and such. And, in the energy decks where you have a little bit more impactful stuff to copy, it's fine. But the biggest problem with the Prowess decks is really your creatures dying, and with Dimir Frog and... what's up, Salty? But I've seen a few lists that tried to run that, but I think you're just compounding the problem the deck already had, and that is, if you don't have your namesake creatures, you're already worse off. Now, sure, it'd be great to have more virtual copies of Slickshot Show Off, or a DRC, getting more Surveil triggers, etc. So I can understand the draw towards it, but I do think it's ultimately a win more card that it does fit what the deck's doing when the deck's not being disrupted, but I don't know that it fixes the fundamental problems of Prowess, which are there are turn 4 decks in the format in the form of Boros Energy that also play a heck of a mid-range deck and also get to play the One Ring. Prowess is kind of in the same boat as Burn. You're not fast enough for the truly dedicated combo decks, such as, Storm or Amulet Titan. And sure, you have certain cards you can bring in against those matchups, Blood Moon and Consigned to Memory, etc. Tormod's Crypt to slow them down. But you're not fast enough for the combo decks, and you're not grindy enough to outgrind the mid-range, specifically Boros. So you're kind of in this tween phase where you're not fast enough to beat combo, you're not interactive enough or grindy enough to beat Boros, and they have relatively the same speed as you. So what is Prowess's role in the format if you're not the fastest aggro deck and you're not good enough to compete against the mid-range and control decks? So, now as far as the rest of the deck, Bolt and Lava Dart, kind of the staples. Lightning Bolt, obviously the best 1-mana red spell in the format, at least in terms of direct damage. We could make an argument for Unholy Heat being slightly better. Lava Dart triggers a lot of your prowess, triggers, your surveils on DRC, triggers your prowesses on those, triggers your slick shot show-offs. The biggest nice thing about Lava Dart right now is it's fairly relevant against the best deck in the format. The fact that it can kill, Ocelot Prize and not really Guys of Souls, but Ocelot Prides and Raptors and Ragavans. The fact that, it can deal with Bowmaster and so many other things. So it's not a terrible card, game 1 card, and a card you can easily board out in some of the more, interactive matchups, if it's not really helping your primary game plan. Mishra's Bauble pairs nicely with DRC and your fetch lands in the early turns to kind of sculpt your draws. It also pairs nicely with this Preordain and EI to help you find cards you're looking for. And then, finally, a couple copies of Monstrous Rage in this build were nice for helping to close out the game when you need to push through that little bit of extra damage. And a couple copies of Underworld Breach, hopefully to get you back in the mid-game or finish off your opponent with a couple of burn spells, or draw you several cards with maybe a couple copies of Mishra's Bauble. Mana base, a little bit sketchy because you're playing the third color, but oftentimes you'll see one copy of Stomping Ground, or sometimes a Stomping Ground and a Commercial District. But beyond that, a bunch of fetch lands. Only one basic in this version, a little bit dicey against Harbinger, but when you're playing a 3-color deck, especially with your such a reliant on the third color in your sideboard, you might be able to fit in another mountain by cutting a Spire Bluff or something, but this was the version we were running a couple months back. Not in this version, Tough Kate. Honestly, a lot of the Temur versions moved away from it because you had to make room for your Preordains and your EIs somehow. Whether that was the correct thing or not, kind of hard to say, but Mutagenic Growth is really... It's good to speed the deck up, and it's good to... against Bolt specifically. It's not as good against Gal Blast or Galvanic Discharge and Unholy Heat. So, while the Gruul deck has room for it, I don't know if the Temur version had as much. There's 3 Steam Vents here. There's 3 Spire Bluffs, 3 Steam Vents. And mainly because the Temur version, and we'll talk about that when we talk about the sideboard, but the Temur version, well, it's a lot harder with these special art versions. It's kind of hard to sometimes differentiate the lands. But the one of the things that Temur really gives up is its ability to effectively run Blood Moon. You certainly can shove a Blood Moon in your sideboard and hope it's good enough against Eldrazi, but you then shut off your Preordains and your EIs, whereas the Gruul version is basically mono red splashing like Questing Druid or Scale Up, so you're not as punished for playing Blood Moon in your deck, so you have to play kind of weaker options against Eldrazi. So, and Salty, this is just looking at an older list that I ran a couple months ago. Because, I mean, if we want to look at just take a shot. Because this is the problem you run into with deck lists right now. The last was a Temur Prowess list that ran... I mean, this one runs Mutagenic Growth, Tarfire, Violent Urge. This one a little bit more leans into Delirium with Violent Urge and Soulscar Mage, all this, you know. But they have Veil of Summer. So this one fully leans into the thing. But as you see, 2 and 4 and a Super Sunday Qualifier, or Super Sunday RCQ. The one we ran a couple weeks ago with Elusive Otter is more towards almost the Gruul variant of the deck. Had the Mutagenic Growths. And then this is kind of like the last semi-medium finish with the deck. Back in October. You'll see Mutagenic Growths, but no copies of the cantrips. And then this one has the cantrips, but doesn't play the Mutagenic Growths. So I think a lot of it comes down to, do you want to play the preordained expressive iteration, which I think is the main draw towards these colors, or do you want to play the pump spells and whatnot? So I think you can, and we'll get to the Otter version, which had Mutagenic Growth here in a minute. But as far as the sideboard, one of the things I noticed playing the deck is, we've already kind of covered with Blood Moon. It was not terrible, but there'd be a lot of times where you'd Blood Moon and then draw a bunch of blue cards and then couldn't cast them unless you're running something like Manamorphose. So, and Salty, you can feel free to criticize or talk about it, you know, because that's part of the reason this boot camp was is that so people can kind of have a in-depth look at the deck, you know, if it comes, you know, Boros finally gets a ban or the One Ring disappears from the format, people have a starting point of what the deck was and why it functioned. You know, kind of like when we looked at the old school Is It Prowess list, you know, this deck was similar but different than what we were dealing with. So I think sometimes it's good to take a step back at what was previously played in a different part of the format to see what worked in the deck and what didn't. Tormod's Crypts should easily probably be surgical extractions. Either way, this is mainly here to fight Flagent Storm. Ceremonious Rejections under ideal circumstances would be Consignment Memories. It's just a bit wider of a card. Not only does it counter the colorless spell, but it also stops Storm triggers specifically, as well as flip triggers from Johnny, etc. Not that I think I would bring this in again, or that card in against Boros, but you know, it is a card that you could play. Unholy Heat, when you're a little bit more of a Delirium heavy build, this is a nice removal spell against, you know, things like Nethergoyf, Temur Frog, Murktide Region. Doesn't always kill them, but it is the best that Red has at that slot. One card you could possibly consider would be, if you're trying to play a bit more of a tempo game, is Vapor Snag. Pick Your Poison, I mean, it basically answers everything we want to answer but Chalice. It hits Trinisphere, it hits Urza Saga, it hits Murktide Regents, Scion of Draco, etc. Pyroclasm-esque effects. the thought process was that you could try to bring this package in against Boros and have a prayer. But I think the reality is once the deck adopted the One Ring, you just weren't out grinding them. But nevertheless, you need a Pyroclasm, a Fearfire Foes, a Rough Tumble, something to clear their crappers out of the way. The only one of yours that this even possibly could kill is either a non-delirious DRC or a Slick Shot, and you can always sequence your thing a little bit better. And then Questing Druid is just a grindy card. I mean, it's a body, it's an EOT, draw 2 for a turn, etc. So it was a card that was seeing a lot of play in this deck, and then obviously Giganta because you can run it. And then kind of the last build of Temur that popped up before everything kind of completely went to crap. And this is a more almost Gruul-esque build. It has Elusive Otter as an additional threat, which is an interesting creature. Creatures with power less than Elusive Otter can't block it, which means your opponent can't chump this thing. And if you pump it up, especially pre-combat before blockers, your opponent really can have problems dealing with this. And Slick Shot gives it evasion, along with Swift Spear and Soulscar Mage. Part of me wonders if you shouldn't run DRC just to make almost all your creatures evasive except for Monster Swift Spear. But, this one runs the Assault Strobe, Monstrous Rage, and Mutagenic Growths, and then has a couple copies of Play with Fire to supplement your Lightning Bolts and your Lava Darts. Your sideboard, 4 Tormod's Crypts, 4 Ceremonious Rejection, 4 Pick Your Poison, 4 Rough Tumble. We've kind of talked about all these cards and the cards they should represent, like Surgical, Consign to Memory, Pick Your Poison, Rough Tumble, Pyroclasm. I mean, it's kind of one of the pluses and the minuses of the deck. So, but that said, we're going to run the this version. I think we're going to tweak the sideboard a little bit, so I'll make a different version of it. Basically changing up more to the sideboard that's going on with this one, just because trying to think what cards should we shave here, what cards should we allow. I think trying to outgrind them is just let's just roll with the version we had a couple months ago. Kind of give an idea of sequencing with the deck, etc. So, anything available in 2-player queue? No, I'm just going to turn to practice room. That's the version we want. Yeah, that's the version we want. Ragavan is not good in Modern right now. The format's gotten a lot more answering 1-drops because of energy. So the deck it's only really good in is energy and maybe... Is it Murktide, if that's even still a thing? X1s are just not where you really want to be in a format right now. Bowmaster, I mean, obviously Renin 6 doesn't see as much play, but, when there's so many Lava Darts and Lightning Bolts and Galv Discharges and Fatal Pushes and all that stuff, plus, so many decks, I mean, outside of Amulet, which I don't even see much anymore, and Storm, there aren't really too many decks that you benefit from Ragavan's pushing mana and pushing cards. Now, I can certainly run away with a game against, Prowess or Burn if they don't have a spell for it, or, some other deck, but it's just not that well positioned right now. Plus, I don't own any So that's also a kind of a deciding factor when I'm choosing deck lists, is cards I own and cards I don't own, since I stepped away from Mana Traders. See if we can get this going. We'll try this hand. The one downside to this hand is the fact that we have our Surveilling in our opening hand, but other than this, it's pretty close to the hand we want out of our deck. Could obviously use a second Prowess threat, but it's one of the things when you're evaluating opening hands from the Prowess side is you always want at least one threat, sometimes two, and you want at least 2 lands if at all possible. So yeah, for this kind of reason, interesting choice by our opponent. Hey, great card to draw there. Poor timing by our opponent, but we're going to bottom that Lightning Bolt and pass turn. Okay, so it looks like we're up against Red Black Delirium. Just like Nethergoyf. Might be Red Black Hollow One. Yeah, Nethergoyf. Certainly a problem. It's a fairly fast clock. Don't think there's any reason to play a Bolt or a Lava Dart here at the end of EOT. Okay, well they just gave us a reason to play Bolt here at the EOT. Doop. I think I'm just gonna play Soulscar and hold up Shore Up here. I was gonna play EI, but there is a chance that we brick here on a land and can't play a second spell. Yeah, wonderful. Guess we have to let this resolve. So we pitch a land, an Underworld Breach, and a Lava Dart. So I suppose we kept our 2 best cards in hand, so I'm curious what they're playing here. Okay. Taking a hit for 7. Ideally, we draw another land next turn. That's not ideal. So we have to assume if they have a bolt or something, we're just toast regardless. So I think I'm going to EI. Hope they don't have another fatal push left lined up. And of course they do. So. Come on. Yep. So what gives us the best chance to finish off the game here? +3, or +2, +2, +4. 2, 2, 4, or 2, 2, 5. It's 9, 10, 11. I think we down the bottom of our deck, exile that. And I guess with Lava Dart I should have kept the bolt perhaps, because then bolt would only be +3, so okay, do you have a Tarfire or a bolt? Let's play a chump blocker. Just really don't want to play these out until we have a chance, but yeah, that's game. Bring in the Tormod's Crypts. Maybe bring in the Unholy Heats. Rest of the cards don't really feel like they do a whole lot. Lava Dart isn't the best against them. So I think we just kind of click submit. So Doyle, I think there's already the Hollow One deck's probably pretty close to that, because it plays Netherglyph, it plays Hollow One, it uses Bowmaster plus Burning Inquiry as kind of a machine gun effect. Then it has Detectives Phoenix and DRC. So pretty sure that deck's already pretty close to that. And then the problem becomes, if you're going to play a deck like that, you may as well just be playing the Zoo or a Rakdos Death Shadow build. This version theoretically is a little bit better than our last one because we have the 2 creatures rather than the 1. But our opponent is... sure, whatever. Why people insist on bringing in Leyline the Void against us? Oh, we are. I understand he thinks we're on DRC, but I just don't think it's worth bringing in. Opponent's got a fatal push, of course. Technically, Lava Dart on the back end would be too, but we did board those out. Oh, for crying out loud. Guess we play it out and pressure our opponent as much as we can. Into a bestow, sure. Question is, do they hold back or do they smack us for what, 5? Let's get a duel. Glad you're having fun. People are having fun in Standard. It's unironic that Standard might be the best format in Magic again right now, which is just, well, the best competitive format, I should say. I'd still argue that Commander's a better format overall. I'd assume they smack us here, but I mean, the damage on the crack back could be pretty high. Oh, they have no choice because it's delirious. I really think they should have used Mishra's Bauble before deciding to bring back that Phoenix, but... or at least brought the Phoenix back post-combat. Alright. Lightning Bolt is certainly a card that I would like to see here. Oh. Hello there. So... Tormod's Crypt to hand, that to exile. Actually, this was dumb on my part. I could have bolted their DRC, and then when we nuke their graveyard, we could have killed it, dealt with everything, other than whatever the last card in their hand is. Alright, opponent concedes. They must not have drawn anything major here. Do we bring in Pick Your Poison? I guess we do, because it hits Hollow One, it hits Leyline of the Void if we even care about it. It hits Phoenixed up creatures. So this might even be better over on Holy Heat, but I'm still gonna probably leave Holy Heat in the deck. That was the reason they brought it in, I think they saw Underworld Breach at some point. So that was the other card that's technically graveyard centric. Yeah, I've seen a little bit on Dingo's channel of Standard, and it's not that I wouldn't like to get back in the Standard, but the reality is I'm not really a competitive Magic player anymore. I don't really participate in local shop stuff right now. Even after I move, if I participate, it's either going to be Modern or Commander. I'm just not that interested in trying to branch out and cover every format right now. Like, I'd like to play Timeless, I'd like to play Standard. You know, there's a lot of formats I'd like to play, but it just isn't... I'm going to play Soulscar Mage here first. Yeah, that's the thing though, is I've come to understand that personally, as I play Magic, I don't like getting a whole bunch of new cards. I prefer like going into a shop, buying the singles I need, and that kind of stuff. So, I don't know. Fatal Push, right? Yep, shocker. So there, another glyph is a 4/5. We pass here. Hold up, shore up, although I'm not even sure I would use it on a DRC here or not. I think if I were to ever get back into more competitive MTG, it would start with Modern and then kind of spiral out. And it would require me having whatever the top tier deck is. Whether that's Energy, whether that's, you know, other decks of that ilk. So we take 1, take 4. I basically keep up with Arena because I can play it on my phone. Like 90% of the Arena games I play anymore are on my phone, other than the little bit that I record for, I think I just let this go. If they follow up with a Thoughtseize, then, you know, whatever. We lose the game. Paper, I have an outdated Green Tron deck, and I have an outdated, a little bit outdated Boros Burn deck. So, play Slick Shot, play Mishra's Bauble. Opponent's going to draw a bobble. Yeah, I mean, the problem becomes is Wizards had gutted organized play so badly that, you know, Pioneer is like the perfect example. They introduce the format. They push it right before the pandemic. Then they if they have a DRC, we're dead. DRC Bolt. Looks like they're doing the Exert. So, yeah, looks like we're going to be dead to something here. FOMO? Oh, we are really dead to FOMO. Opponent gets to haste it, untap, and then hit us again. Yeah, we're dead. Alright. But, you know, they introduced the format. COVID happened, so local gameplay kind of stopped. Then they just kind of let the format die on the vine to a point by letting all of the combos like Inverter and all that. Yeah, that deck, the Rakdos deck is pretty sweet. I've seen it in different iterations, and it's a pretty sweet deck. It's Hollow One on crack, basically. Hollow One without Faithless Looting on crack. But, yeah, we keep this one because we have the Preordain, basically. See their opponents on here. Short Claimers, some type of mid-range pile. Most likely, anyway. Play our DRC. Well, get our Steam Vents, play our DRC, and pass. Okay, they're like Naya. Valakut nonsense, maybe? They have another Reclaimer, maybe? Oop. Alright, we're going to play a Preordain, looking for lands. Bin that. Well, we found a land. Did I get greedy and bottom it and hope to hit a second or an untap land? Or do we just kind of understand that this is going to be... I think we'll keep the sure thing. And keeping the third land on top. Yes, Field of the Dead is banned in Modern. Because of Titan and Scapeshift both. But, I mean, Pioneer died. Then they reorganized organized play to where it kind of became relevant again. And then, so, what do I play here? I think it's Switty into Hold Up Monstrous Rage and come on. Shore up this turn. And then post-combat, I think we play Preordain if they don't do anything else. Okay. Don't know if that was the best choice in the world, but, you know. Her deck's probably running flagstones, I would guess. Yep, that'll be the 4th card type. So, just hold up, shore up, and deal our opponent a bunch of damage. These are the kind of decks that Prowess really, you know, kind of dunks on a little bit. Is these really kind of non-interactive, kind of turn 4, turn 5 mopey decks. Sacrifice a Valakut to go get a Flagstones. Seems like the move. Nope, Bajuka Bog. Turns it into a 4-2, so that still doesn't do you any good. I mean, it reduces the amount of damage, sure, but... Well, that's mildly annoying. So they are BTL Escape Shift. Got it. Let's get our Slick Shot. So... I think I start with Preordain. Putting the land on the yard. Force them to make a decision here. You save this by transforming it and do yourself a bunch of damage. Not anymore. If you see Escape Shift, generally, well, it could be Titan with their new weird build, or it could be BTL Escape Shift. Continue holding up shore up here. Problem is they could just BTL. Sure. Traumatize. This could be absolutely terrifying. Excuse me? How does that work? How does traumatize? Oh, okay. I didn't realize they were playing 100 some odd card deck. Wow, her deck is something. I didn't realize they were on, like, I think that's, oh, come on. Stop the Circle of Doom here. So, slick shot, bolt, and the graveyard, hit you for a bunch, and opponent's got a deck. Yeah, well, you let the brewers brew and, you know, go about their business on this for years. I mean, I don't even know what to bring in against them. I think I literally just go with my default deck and try to be relatively fast. How much are flages these days anyway? Like, I have the card, but I don't even play it. Flage, Titans, Fury. $10. This hand is... like, this part of the hand is good. These 5. These 2... I think we can do better on 6. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, we'll try it. Back, stomping ground for now. Nice. Alright, let's play our DRC. Do we bobble here? I feel like we bobble here. Bobble, baby, bobble, baby, bobble, baby. Yeah, let's put that in the graveyard. We don't need another one of those. Doo-doo. Told you there'd be a flagstones in there. Yep. No, I mean, we could, but I think to bring in specific cards, you really have to, I mean, we could try to counter their strategy, but they're a 112 card deck, or 120 card deck, whatever they are. I'm not going to bring in targeted graveyard hate for their Splendid Reclamation plan. Oh, they certainly have graveyard shenanigans. They had Splendid Reclamation, Creeping Chills. But I mean, we could go back and look at the footage, but I suspect they're like BTL, Traumatize, Splendid Reclamation. They're basically a BTL Scapeshift deck combined with a... I think we just surveil here. It doesn't seem like they have another piece of interaction. And go and put that in the graveyard. Slick Shank Show Off. get our basic mountain here, play our slick shots, and then understand that I am dead to... I'm about to get reprieved, aren't I? Yep. Yep, they do have a removal spell here. So they did kind of... Well, they might have... I don't even know if they have Leyline Binding in their list. But... The thing with Prowess, and you kind of bring up a good point, O'Doyle. With Prowess and Burn, you really don't want to be bringing in like Rest in Pieces and Surgical Extractions unless you're like shutting down either your entire opponent's almost entire deck or some overwhelming angle of their deck. Like, it's kind of like why I like the 4-4-4-3 sideboard is, you know, Ceremonious Rejection / Consign to Memory, really good against, am I going to get reprieved? I was going to say, am I about to get reprieved again? I should have played the Preordained pre-combat there. But yeah, we should have, but this, you know, I'm not trying to like dog on it that this being the practice league and whatnot, but Chalice on one, yeah, that's a valid thing. Sadly, I don't think it matters here, but because the only card that quasi matters is Underworld Breach into playing a bunch of spells. One, two, three. Trigger these. Do the thing. Bottle you. You have Escape Shift on top. That'd be terrifying under most circumstances. You know what? Let's just play these into Chalice. Play Shore Up. And then Mishra's Bauble should be lethal here. GG's. Escape Shift on top. And bloop. Oh, I know. I'm aware. But their deck looked sweet, at least. You know, those are the kind of people that I don't mind playing Magic against, just because, you know, they're trying to innovate, they're trying to have fun. You know, to me, that's what Magic is should be about, not trying to play the most tuned, broken, annoying thing you can play just because, oh, I get wins, I get treasure chests, I get money, I get this, I get that. It's, unfortunate side of Magic sometimes. But I think you kind of get the general idea of, prowess and whatnot here. I wish the format had better news for us at Red Mages, but it just... We get Bolt Wave, everybody else gets MH3 cards. I mean, I'm enormously thankful that they printed another playable Bolt spell. It marginally improved Modern Burn, it marginally improved Legacy Burn. It made Standard Burn a legitimate deck with some of the other cards that are out there. It potentially made it playable in Pioneer finally. I don't mind playing Tier 1 if Tier 1 is an interesting deck. Like, Nadu, not a fan of. Rakdos Scam, it kind of fit my playstyle, but still wasn't healthy for the format. Boros Energy is a deck that probably would fit my playstyle well enough, but I've known from the moment that I saw the Untuned lists that people started including Ragavan and Ocelot Pride and God of Souls and Ajani and Amped Raptor and Flage. I knew at some point something in that deck was getting banned. And this was before they even added the One Ring to make it the force that it is now. To me, that deck screamed, I'm getting banned. And the only deck... I think the only modern decks I've had two modern decks that have gotten something or had something banned in paper. I had, is it Phoenix that had Faithless Looting, got banned because of Hogak, and then I had a Mycosynth the Lattice in my Green Tron sideboard, and those were the two decks I've owned that at the time had something banned out of them. It's part of the reason I will not invest in the One Ring. I think that card's days are numbered. I think it may even bite the dust on December 16th if they care about the modern format at all. Which I don't know with the surge of Standard right now how much they care. But I think that card's going to eat a ban. I own a copy of the One Ring that I pulled from a pack. And that's actually a real cool story. So, kind of story time. My wife and I went with our in-laws to a trip to rural part of southern West Virginia. And on our way out, because my in-laws were staying there, I had to come back because of, I think, work or something. It was either work or some other reason. And we stopped at this... kind of a country game shop that had like all kinds of sweet things. Like they had like an area where you could play like board games and stuff for like, you could pay like a fee and like $5 or $10 and play like all board games all day long if you wanted to. Or they were getting into Magic, and they had a whole bunch of, for a store really in the middle of nowhere, it really had a lot of things. And it had some Lord of the Rings packs. We picked up 2 Lord of the Rings packs and ended up pulling a copy of the One Ring out of it. So, that was really awesome. It's going to eventually probably end up in my Duretti, or Durevi? Duretti? I think Duretti, commander deck. But, it's a fun design card, but God is it miserable in modern and probably to a certain extent Legacy. So, this is like one of the funnest. I think it was the single greatest pull I've ever had of a pack. I think prior to that, the best card I ever pulled in a pack was an LCS Suns Champion way back in the day when it was a thing in Standard, in RTR Standard. So I haven't had the best of luck with pack openings, and I'm not a huge fan of having a huge amount of cards around, so I prefer using store credit and such for picking up things and such whenever I'm playing more competitively. But I want to thank Doyle for hanging out tonight. Everybody else that, foiled fetch lands are always nice. I want to thank everybody, Salt, everybody else. Wasn't trying to be combative if I came off as that. What's up, Daniel? Or thanks for also hanging out, Daniel. Wasn't trying to get battly with Salt if he took it as that. I'm not sure if he just had to go or whatnot. But I was just kind of explaining, the general portions of why things happen with the deck. Everybody has their, everybody has their tech. Everybody has their preferential cards. And I'm not saying they're wrong. I tend to point out more what the stock lists have been whenever I've been covering this, because I haven't had the time to play like 5 or 10 leagues a week to, get the best version of a deck. I just kind of take what other people have done and try to get a feel for how I feel those decks function and try to get that information out to the people that care about it. So I hope I could do a good enough job of that. It's kind of the point of these boot camps as well, is just to kind of get the information out there so that way if the deck ever picks up again, there's kind of a placeholder that people can look back and say, oh, okay, this is what the deck did, this is how it functioned, how can I tweak it to make it better in this new improved meta. So, anywho, I want to thank everybody for hanging out, and I hope you guys have a great week, rest of the weekend, and hope to see you for next week's stream. Everybody have a happy Thanksgiving if you're here in the United States.